He's Tim.
And he's Harry.
And we're about to turn paper sideways.
You're listening to Turn Paper Sideways, the podcast where we talk about cardboard and rotating at 90 degrees.
We talk about all things Magic the Gathering, from current affairs to our favourite format, Commander. And on today's show, we're going to discuss the ins and outs of deck building, net decking, and doing it yourself.
Oh yeah, before we get into that, you can find us on Twitter at TPSMTG.
You could email us at turnpapersideways@gmail.com, send us an email to say hi, tell us how you're enjoying the podcast, or you could complain at us, but I've got no suggestions because I've got no complaints today, Tim. It's a good day.
Oh, that's cool. I'm disappointed. I always like your complaints. You can support us by rating us on iTunes. Give us a 5-star. Helps people find us easier. Helps grow the Turn Paper Sideways family. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, and if you really want to support us, you can go to patreon.com/turnpapersideways, and there you can donate as little as $1 an episode, and this goes a really long way in paying for our server costs, enabling us to do giveaways, and also to buy a new microphone, which I've purchased, and it is on its way.
We are very excited. This is the last episode that Harry will be recording on his current computer microphone.
Yeah, it's just the inbuilt mic on my laptop, so I'm looking forward to upgrading it. We've got a new patron since our last episode.
Yes, we do. Thank you so much to Zuby. Magic with Zuby. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Sharing the love within the community, and I'm sure we will hear a little bit from him later.
I'm sure we will.
But for now, Tim, do you want to do the news?
First piece of very exciting news, Harry. We're on YouTube.
Yeah, we are.
It's the same episodes. There's nothing new, but if that's how you listen to podcasts and you're getting really annoyed at us having to listen on those darn podcast apps, then you head on over to YouTube and you listen to us there, because you can do that now.
Yeah, we're going to backdate it. Eventually, we'll have all of our previous episodes on there as well. But from now on, we will start uploading with a simple video. There's not going to be a lot to watch for now. I guess that's something that could be done in future with more patron support, perhaps. So there we go. But for now, at least you can listen to us on YouTube, as I know a lot of people prefer to do.
Yes.
The next piece of news is about M19 and one particular card from M19.
Ooh, what is this particular card, Harry?
This particular card is Nexus of Fate. Nexus of Fate is the new Buy a Box promo. So we discussed Buy a Box promos in an earlier episode with the Fire Song and Sunspeaker one from Dominaria. And Nexus of Fate is very similar. It's only available if you buy a full box of M19. So this is an incredibly powerful card. It's 5 blue for an instant, which says take an extra turn after this one. If Nexus of Fate would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, reveal Nexus of Fate and shuffle it into its owner's library instead. What do you think of this, Tim?
So, this card, I love this card. It's an instant speed extra turn. That's not usual. That's new. It's really exciting. It's got Sarkhan on it. That's sweet. It's a buy box promo. It's only available in foil. This sucks. I'm not happy that this is the only way you can get this is by buying a box, which I imagine, I don't know how much the average person spends on Magic, but I would say that of everyone I know, the average person does not buy a box of every set, and it doesn't seem fair.
We did discuss this problem earlier in a previous episode, and I don't like that it's only available in foil, because like we discussed with Kess. So Kess is a card which is played in Legacy. It's only been printed in foil, and luckily there has actually been a change in tournament rules regarding proxies. So because Kess has been warping, it's only available in foil, and the foil printing is so bad, you can actually get proxies issued to replace it at tournaments. But still, I see that as a problem. And Nexus of Fate, so Fire Song and Sunspeaker is a card which is probably only going to be played in Commander, whereas this one is a fantastic card which might well see standard play,
Yeah.
which means that demand is going to be higher. It's only available as a buy a box promo, and the pre-order price is $34. That's the
What?
value that's being put on it by private sellers before it's released. I don't see that going down much. I mean, it will when it gets opened. When people buy boxes. That's the point. It's not going to be opened.
It's not going to get opened. It will never go down from the price it settles on unless they reprint it. Unless it gets played for a bit and then it stops getting played and people discover it's not good. It's just not going to settle any lower than kind of where it's going to be in about 3 weeks.
Yeah, and I really don't like the precedent that they set with the last one. I don't like that they've continued this precedent. People have been really berating Morrow on his Tumblr about it. But the thing is, this was set in motion possibly a couple of years ago, 18 months ago. You know, Wizards worked so far behind. They're working a long time in advance to get these things out. And so this is already set in motion. But even so, I still don't like it. I think that the whole precedent of it feels exclusive, and I feel like it's a bit off-putting possibly for newer or casual players. That the only way they can get this is to invest £100 into a box.
Giving Wizards the benefit of the doubt, I think they got into a lot of trouble with Fire Song and Sunspeaker. They kind of half dodged the bullet because the card isn't great, but if it was a good card, they'd have been even more kind of attacked for it. And now this has come out. They're going to be under fire for it. They already are. Maybe this is the last time they do this. If it isn't, then we'll keep saying the same thing. It's not on. Stop doing it. What I will say is this has got Sarkhan on it, and I really want to go back to Tarkir. So, if this means we're going back to Tarkir and you're going to reprint it, then I'm okay with that. But don't do it again. But I'm okay with that.
These core sets they sort of dot around all over the place. So
yeah, they kind of they're for everyone, aren't they? So.
Exactly.
Not that individual sets aren't for everyone, but
no. So anyway, it's an expensive card which will be great in Commander, and I do love the card, but sadly I don't love the way that we're getting it.
No. But what do you love, Harry?
Nice segue. I love Battle Bond. So in our last episode we reviewed Battle Bond and we thought it looked fantastic. I can confirm that it is fantastic. I played it on Friday night with friend of the show and patron Steve, and we had a great time. The draft portion was amazing. We had a load of fun. I mean, Steve had to stop me rare drafting too much. I did have to pass a greater good. We already had one, and we didn't need two in our deck, and Steve had to convince me not to take a second. But I just want that card. I want it in all my green decks, which is all of my decks. But but the draft section was fantastic. And then we built, what did we have? We had a Bant control deck, which I played. So it was a lot of instant speed stuff, counter spells, and things like that. And then Steve went with a green-black sort of bigger creatures, stompy stuff, and sacrificing the creatures for value deck. It was a lot of fun. Something I really like about it is that we didn't feel hemmed into any particular archetype. There was a lot of flexibility in the deck building. So we got to build decks which sort of felt a little bit unique to us rather than set archetypes, which I really liked. And then the gameplay was amazing. So we had a really good time playing with people. And, the people that we were playing with were in good spirits and were not there to be too competitive. They were there to have fun as well, just like we were. And that enhanced it. But yeah, the gameplay is awesome. There are loads of really interesting interactions, and it's just fascinating how Two-Headed Giant is different to single player Magic, 1v1 and other multiplayer formats. It's a nice different way of playing, and I really enjoyed it.
I haven't played it yet, but I've only heard repeats of what you've just said. It's great. It's, to quote my friend Joe, it's gas. I'm really excited. If I may ever get to play it, I don't know, but when I do, I'm excited for it.
I really hope you do get to play it. I've played a lot of Conspiracy with you, and based on how you enjoy Conspiracy, I think you'll love Battle Bond. And I love Conspiracy, but Battle Bond is even better. And the best thing about it was that I walked away with a handful of cards that I still wanted to use. There are so many good cards for Commander in this set.
Oh, yeah. We'll have to play some Battle Bond. Do you know what else is awesome, Harry? Do you know what I love?
Go on, tell me.
Brawl. I haven't played Battle Bond, but I have played Brawl. For those of you who don't know, Brawl is the new format. It's a 60-card singleton, standard cards only, with a commander, which can be any standard legal planeswalker or creature, and it is gas. It's really fun. We really enjoyed playing it. I had a couple friends over last night. We built some decks. We've got a pirate tribal. We've got a Locust God deck, we've got a Muldrotha deck, and it's a really fun meta. The decks all have a go at winning or losing terribly. The power level seems really fun. It seems really kind of fun commander level stuff, but not broken. Oh, I haven't got that card, therefore you're going to win. Not that I feel that often with commander, but I know that some people do feel that.
Yeah.
It's a great level. One of my favourite moments was the Muldrotha deck had stolen the Locust God, and then the player who was playing the Locust God cast Saheeli's Artistry to copy the Locust God and Torrential Gearhulk, and he got a spell back and he made another copy, and I don't know what he did, but it was, and then he played a clone, I don't know. It was just stupid, and I was sitting there watching like, I don't know what's going on, but this is great fun. There's lots of cards on the table, so yeah, it was really fun. And then I played the winner in the next game, and I won very, very quickly out the gate with my my pirate tribal deck. It just had everything in my hand. It lined up perfectly, perfect curve, and my creatures were getting bigger and bigger, and I just won. It was great.
Amazing.
So the format's really fun. If you haven't played it, give it a go. The idea I had with Brawl is I don't play standard because I just can't cope with the rotation. So this Brawl deck, I imagine what I'll do is it will change a little bit in the next month or so, but once I'm happy with it, I'm just going to never take that deck apart, and it will always be my Pirate Brawl deck. And I was talking to the guy who had the Muldrotha deck, and he was saying the same thing. It's just going to stay like this, and then in 2 years when someone says, I've got this brand new Brawl deck, do you want to play against it? So, I've only got one from 2 years ago, do you mind me playing that? It hasn't changed. And they're like, yeah, there's no problem. So I like the idea that Brawl can be eternal, just kind of keep within the restraints of a certain time period.
Okay, so your playgroup is sort of suggesting that you keep it, so everything that was legal with that commander
Exactly.
stays legal with that commander, and you can play it in future against cards that it was never legal against.
Exactly, as long as it doesn't change. But when Aether Revolt rotates, I actually lose 4 cards. So I think what I'll do is I'll change those 4 cards, and then my deck will be legal for another year or however long.
Yeah.
And so this isn't going to happen for ages, but I mean, when Ixalan rotates, pretty much the whole deck goes because it's a pirate tribal deck.
Yeah, sure, okay.
But yeah, I really encourage you, if you haven't thought about playing Brawl, please give it a try. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome, that's great. Something I am worried about with Brawl, I haven't played it yet, but I still haven't got around to building a deck. But I do think it looks fun, but I am concerned about the rotation thing, and I think that we will find out when rotation hits. Maybe not this rotation, but certainly when Dominaria rotates, and when Ixalan rotates, when Dominaria rotates. I think we will find out how good the sticking power of Brawl is, because if it's fun, that's great, but if people have to reinvest into it, that's when we'll find out if it's going to stick around. You know what happened with Tiny Leaders. I don't want the same thing to happen, but I think we'll find out at rotation time. But if you've got a play group that want to keep your Brawl decks together, awesome.
Yeah.
So Tim, on that note, shall we move into the main topic?
Let's do just that.
But before we actually get into the main topic, we've got a ad or a commercial from Zuby, our new patron. So Zuby's got his own podcast, and he's going to promo it for you now.
Hey everybody, Zuby here to tell you about my Magic the Gathering podcast, Magic with Zuby. Magic with Zuby is a podcast all about the Magic the Gathering card game. We talk about the latest news and events, the latest cards and decks. We bring on guests from pro players to content creators and more. Join me each week as we keep discovering why Magic the Gathering is the best card game around.
Alright, so on to the main topic. What is the main topic today, Tim?
So we decided to talk about deck building, but particularly focusing on the stigma of kind of decks that build themselves, or net decking. So an example of a deck that might build itself is a deck built entirely around a single mechanic that came out in one set. So I've been building a heroic deck from a Theros block, and kind of my choices are quite limited in the creatures I can put in the deck.
Mm-hmm.
And a tribal deck, my elf deck, is very similar, I imagine, to everyone else's Freylei's, Lanoir's Fury deck, because it's the best elves. Things like any deck where you go to EDH Rec and you take the top 99 cards. There's a lot of stigma around that. Some people abhor it. Some people think, yeah, that's fine. That's how we build decks in the modern day. So there's a lot of there's people on both sides. I've got a leg on either side of the fence. I think tools like EDHREC are invaluable. The amount of times I've built a deck and I thought, I'll just check it out on EDHREC, and then there's that one card I didn't know existed, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe this isn't in that deck. It's got to go in there. When I was building my Zada deck, I feel like I talk about that every week, but I checked out EDHREC not just for decks for Zada or Tazri, but I also checked cards that go well with Jeskai Ascendancy and Paradox Engine and a lot of the other spells I've got in the deck. EDHREC's great for that. And some people might not like that because they feel like you haven't put much effort in, you're not really trying, it's kind of, everyone ends up with the same deck. That's a lot of the same argument that you hear a lot, is everyone ends up with decks that are kind of similar to each other, and it's not untrue, for sure, but we're going to talk about that in a minute, about how you can kind of make the deck your own, change it a little bit, make it more your style.
Yeah. So why do you think there is possibly a negative stigma? What do you think are the negative things that people might see about it?
Well, I think one of the big things is if you always win, for sure there's going to be people like, oh man, he's playing that deck again. And if you built that deck on the internet, it's more likely to be more powerful and you win more. And it's fine winning half the time or 60 or 70% of the time. If you win 100% of the time, people aren't going to want to play against that deck. And if that deck is built from a net deck or a tribe or something that's really powerful, then people they're not going to think, wow, that guy's really good at building decks. They're going to think, wow, that guy's got more money than me, which is 9 times out of 10 not true.
Yeah, and another reason is that Commander is a format where we really celebrate creativity, and we've got access to tens of thousands of cards from the whole of the history of Magic, and you've got an opportunity to put together a collection of 100 of them, which speaks something about you and your personality and the type of games that you like to play. And if you just go to EDHREC or MTG Goldfish or wherever, and you just take a deck from there, you're not allowing yourself that space of creativity. And I think some people think that the whole point of it is to be creative, and the whole point of it is to have a unique deck. And I've got guys that I play with that will not play staple cards. They won't play cards if they're the popular cards that everyone's playing. There's somebody who won't even put a Sol Ring in his deck in my play group.
Wow.
Which is real commitment.
That's impressive.
And frankly, his decks are some of the most powerful among our
group.
Really? He plays some fantastic decks with so often that he plays cards that we don't know what they do. There are lots of reasons why it might have a negative stigma, and sometimes I think it's just that it's got negative stigma for negative stigma's sake. There's a lot of discussion about Commander and stuff is on the internet, and the internet is quite often a place for people just to spout off and be negative for no reason. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who just are happy to sit there and be negative on the internet, and I think it's sort of self-perpetuating in that way. It's not necessarily unreasonable that there's a negative stigma, in the same way that it's not unreasonable there's a positive stigma. There's good and bad to both sides. But which side of the stigma? You say you sit on the fence, but which side do you think you lean on more?
I love building decks, and I'd say that depending on how long you've been playing Commander, depends on whereabouts I sit on the fence for you. If you're brand new to Commander or even Magic, it's so daunting the amount of cards there are. Without tools like Tapped Out, Goldfish, EDHREC, it's almost impossible to build a good deck. I'm not almost impossible, but it's very difficult. There are so many cards, you just don't know what to put in them. So having a website that tells you, look, this is what most people play, or this is an idea of what you could play. I think one of the reasons that people play net decks or kind of out of the box tribal decks or things like that is because without it they have no chance of winning. And I think that's probably the biggest draw towards it. So I think as you've played Commander more and more, I've got 9 EDH decks currently. Some of them are, I think 3 of them are tribal, just straight up tribal. Couple of them are just kind of exactly what you'd expect when you see the Commander, and the rest are kind of my own brews, and they're the ones I enjoy playing the most. Almost always enjoy playing the ones that I've brewed myself the most. It's much more rewarding. And I think that's where a lot of the stigma comes from. It's, well, how can you feel good if you didn't build the deck yourself? And it's not just EDH that has that. It's the same some circles of modern and standard, and but like people are like, well, how can you say that you won if you didn't build the deck yourself? And I don't agree with that, but I can understand why some people might think that, for sure.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a difference between formats like Modern and formats like Commander. The whole point of Commander is it's quite casual. Modern is it's definitely not a solved format, but there are certain archetypes which ebb and flow and are more popular because they're quite effective across the board. Because Modern's quite a broad-ranging format, you're always going to see the same maybe dozen decks, because they are versatile and good in lots of different situations and against lots of different types of decks. Commander is such a broad format, there are so many different archetypes that it doesn't work that way. And so I do totally agree that the more experienced you get as a player, I think the more you should allow yourself to stray away from archetypes or set ideals for certain commanders and try something for yourself. I love using EDHREC to look at cards, look at popular decks and find out what types of cards there are in those decks and use those cards as inspiration and lead down different paths and see, this commander that I'm trying to build is using artifacts as a theme. Okay, so it's using the top 20 staple artifacts, the most powerful artifacts in Magic. But what sort of themes are those artifacts on? Is there a theme that I could hone in on with those? And that might broaden me up. And suddenly, oh, look, I find half a dozen creatures which work well with those types of artifacts. Things like that.
Yeah.
But of course, there are sometimes decks that you can't really avoid it. As you said earlier, with your heroic deck, there are quite a lot of archetypes which don't really allow you the freedom of creativity. Yeah. We've just talked about Akaun and Zundersplit from Battlebond. In our last episode, we talked about how coin flipping decks are probably really popular at the moment. But there's only so many good coin flipping cards. We said this last time. If you want to build a good coin flipping deck, you're sort of limited on what cards you can actually put in there.
Exactly.
Another example is a Hepatra deck. There are only just about enough -1/-1 counters cards to put into a Hepatra deck, and you're going to pick the best ones of those anyway if you want to stand a chance of having a good deck to play against others. It turns out that the Hepatra deck with those -1/-1 counters cards is actually quite a powerful deck, but it's very linear, and basically every Hepatra deck looks the same because there are only sort of 30 cards that are really relevant. And so sometimes if you pick that type of commander, you really can't help but be hemmed into a certain kind of theme. And so that's why we're saying, decks that build themselves. And so these decks really do. You pick that commander and the deck's already built for you. Just pick those cards and go.
It's important to note we're not necessarily saying that's a bad thing. I have an Hepatra deck and I really like it. I haven't played it that much because when I have played it, it's felt very, this is really cool. And if I play it again, I know exactly what's going to happen. I'm going to do the exact same thing again. And we're not saying it's a bad thing. Like they are really fun decks, and it is self-expression. And there's lots of other ways you can take a Hepatra deck or a heroic deck, something that's kind of pre-built, and make it your own. And that's our next kind of thing we're going to say. There are incredible amounts of ways to completely personalize your deck for yourself. The biggest difference you can make is how powerful is the deck. Have you made it a 70% deck, or have you gone all out 100%? Is your deck going to win on turn 4 or 5? Are you gonna be a little machine that's just completely working, or are you kind of sitting back a little bit, just doing some fun things? Maybe not putting in all the best cards for that particular deck, and maybe putting in some silly cards that still help your archetype, but you otherwise wouldn't play them because they're either too expensive or the effect isn't that impressive. So self-expression in the cards you choose.
Another way is looking at how it's powered up. So if it is a powerful deck, is it powered up in the typical way? Is it powered up how people expect it to be? For example, like a Xur deck. A lot of people might see Xur as your commander and expect you to be playing Doomsday combo. But is it actually perhaps the most powerful enchantment creatures deck? You might be trying to get 3 CMC enchantment creatures instead of broken combo pieces. So having it powered up differently to what people might expect from your commander could be a way to change it up as well.
Yeah, for sure. Is it so you've already touched on it, but is it a combo deck that is either a combo people haven't seen, or is it a combo that requires 4 or 5 really precise pieces, where when you get those pieces, you've won, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. But to get to that point, you have to jump through some serious hoops, and more than one of them. So yeah, like, it's fun. It's, well, that deck's really silly. Oh, you just won, and we didn't expect it. But kind of, it's all on board, or it's just silly, you know? That's I think no one's ever going to be annoyed at you for absolutely wiping them with a silly combo or a silly deck. If a lot of effort went into it, they're not going to be annoyed. Unless they were just about to win, they might be a little bit salty.
Yeah, I feel like we'll probably touch on this quite a lot throughout this episode, but Dom's deck, we did a deck tech on it a few episodes ago. Our patron Dom has a fantastic mono blue deck, which is built around, it's got Kefnet as the commander, and it's built primarily around a combo which takes a lot of quite obscure cards and cards that you wouldn't expect to see in a powered up combo. And there are, it takes 3, 4, 5 cards to really make it work. But it's still quite a competitive combo deck.
Exactly.
But it doesn't fit the normal archetype of draw all the cards and win with Lab Maniac.
Yeah, exactly.
Another thing you can do, and this is one of my favourite things to do, is have a deck built around multiple commanders.
Yeah.
So I've had, for example, a Farrakha deck, which used to be a Merrin deck, and it's also a Mazarek deck. And, some of these cards all came in the same precon. And so a lot of the precons have multiple commanders. They don't all work around each of the commanders, but some of them are close to it. And so they've already put you onto that line of thinking. I love taking a deck and being able to just swap in a commander and still have a good, fun play experience. That means that your decks never get boring either.
Yeah, big time. That's a massive deal as well. Your deck not getting stale. You're certainly gonna see more people think, oh man, that deck's really boring. You just build that on the internet. If it's stale, if it never does anything different, if you're doing something different every single time, people will be excited to play against that deck.
Definitely. What have you written here about basic lands? What's that?
You've done this with your Salvala deck. A massive expression of you is the lands you put in the deck, particularly the basic lands. Obviously, there's lots of different non-basic lands that you can choose from, and the configurations are infinite, or maybe, I don't know, don't check me on that, but the basic lands you can put in are there are so many different lands. There are incredible art. There are some with really bad art that you might put in on purpose. There are full art lands, there are old lands, there are brand new lands. Kind of express yourself with the basic lands you use in your deck.
Yeah, brilliant. I've actually just done it with my Muldrotha deck as well.
Have you?
I've got all old border lands, and it's really nice.
Awesome.
So if you've already been doing these sorts of things, if you already think that you're building slightly differently, you're not net decking so much, you're being creative, you're making things personal, what are some other ways that you can change it up?
Well, if you've ever listened to Mark Rosewater's Drive to Work, he'll tell you more than once that restrictions breed creativity. If you give yourself a restriction, it's easier to kind of make a start and kind of know where you're going. So Definitely. The first one is give yourself a restriction. If you're struggling to think of the right cards to cut out of the deck, say, all right, I need to run more enchantments, or okay, well then I need to cut this one and keep this one. If you're starting from the beginning, you might say, I can only play white bordered cards, or no cards over 4 CMC, or no cards under 4 CMC. Don't do that. No creatures in the deck. That's something I did when I built my Mizzix deck. I was really enjoying building it, and then I kind of got a bit bored, and I was like, all right, well, I'm going to make this deck have no creatures. And that's really fun. Brilliant. And it's also a massive downside for the deck, but also it means that I know what my board's going to look like at all times. It's going to be my lands at the bottom and Mizzix at the top. Maybe some artifacts to the side.
Yeah.
Another great restriction, and this is always going to help, is what the Command Zone have said since day one, is you need at least 10 ramp cards and 10 draw cards. That is a massive restriction, but it really helps your deck. If you've got 10 ramp cards and 10 draw cards, you know that your deck's going to be doing something kind of regularly, and all, like, you're never going to stall too much.
Yeah, another restriction that I really like to work towards, this is something that I've been really enjoying recently is just to lower the curve of my decks. I'm trying to get the average CMC of my decks to be around 3, and if it can be on the lower side of 3, I prefer that. So sort of 2.9 is ideal.
That's sweet spot.
There are some decks like my Muldrotha deck, because Muldrotha is a 6-drop, I need a lot of ramp to get there anyway, and that means that I can have a slightly higher curve. But I still don't want it that high. So the average CMC in my Muldrotha deck is actually closer to, I think it's something like 3.9 CMC.
Yeah.
And that's a restriction which I find definitely breeds creativity. You've got to find the effects that you want in a slightly different way at lower CMCs. You've got to be able to, you've got to build, possibly 2 cards together to get the same effect that you might get from 1 card. But what it does is it really smooths out your deck. It really makes sure that you can actually play Commander. Something I've found is it's just no fun sitting there and waiting till turn 7 before you cast your first game-altering card.
Yeah, that's not fun.
No. So restrictions really do breed creativity, and the number of restrictions are endless. You could think up any old restriction. There could even be some really silly ones. You could decide that you only want creatures wearing hats. You're probably not going to get a very powerful deck out of that, but it would be funny.
It would be funny, and you could play it and see if anyone notices.
Yeah. One of my favourite decks that the Commander's Brew has done is the Screaming Bald Guys deck, where they've taken cards from across Magic's history which have pictures of bald guys that are screaming on them. And the deck fantastic. Is rubbish. It is absolutely atrocious, but it sounds like so much fun to play.
Yeah.
So restrictions don't have to be serious; they can be silly as well.
Exactly, and if you come up with any really funny ones, let us know. It's exciting when you think of something. When you kind of, there's that moment where you're like, oh man, I've just thought of this deck, and then it all kind of unfolds, and then you're looking for the cards and you're finding them, and you're building this deck, and you end up with 300 playable cards, and you're like, oh, I don't know what to do. So yeah, let us know if that happens to you. Another type of restriction you can give is make a black deck that doesn't care about the graveyard. So just break the colour pie. Go for something that's completely wrong in terms of, I'm playing a black deck or a black-green deck, but I'm not going to be making a recursion sacrifice deck. Or make a blue deck that isn't controlling. And you could make a 5-colour deck but not use all the colours. And I don't mean completely ignore 2 colours. So the latest one is Najila. It's the mono-red creature, but with a Wooburg activation cost on the card. So it's a 5-colour commander, but you don't have... It only costs red. You could make a mono-red deck with Najila. Why would you? Don't do that. But if you're thinking, all right, I've got a really good Warriors deck that I want to build. It's Mardu. Najila is a great commander. And you can have access to the last 2 colours with gold lands that tap for any colour. So you could still have the capacity to activate this ability. I think I said this before, but you're not building your deck around those 5 colours. You're building it around the 3 colours. So you're building the most kind of streamlined deck you can, but you're not writing off the extra colours. Again, I'm sorry, my Zada deck, it was a 4-colour deck until very recently when I've added a couple of black cards. Well, Tainted Strike's always been in there, but I've added more and more black cards recently. And now it's a 5-colour deck.
Awesome.
I love the idea of making a 2-colour deck, but it's really just 1 colour with a couple of extra cards for that extra colour.
Well, it's just like you would play in Modern. You'd quite happily play a 2-colour deck with a splash of black or something just for your removal cards. That
exactly.
happens all the time in other formats. There's nothing wrong with doing that in Commander as well. I actually really want to build an Najila deck. I'm thinking about it, and I've been looking at cards that I want to put in, and I can only find 1 card from blue that I want to put in.
Really?
I've got a Mardu Vampires deck, and it's all about attacking and amassing a big board full of tokens and swinging to kill my opponents with combat damage. And so Najila is a fantastic commander for doing similar, and it enables me to add green. The main reason I want to add green is to stick Parallel Lives in there. I love token doubling effects, and so having another one in the deck as well as Anointed Procession is amazing. And so obviously there are other green cards I want, like I can have Kodama's Reach, I can have Cultivate, I can get more ramp in there, which smooths out the deck. And the only blue card in my collection that I really want to put in there is Bident of Thassa. I can't find anything else that I'm desperate to put in. And so that means that it would really be a 4-colour deck with a splash of blue. And
Yeah.
so thinking along those lines, maybe that's not a restriction. That's actually, what's the opposite of a restriction? That's an opportunity.
Ooh. Yeah, nice.
You're taking a 3-colour deck and turning it into you're adding a colour there, but that's another way of sort of giving yourself ideas, directions to move in with your deck building.
Yeah, exactly. And last one is make the tribal deck that no one in your group has. Make the tribal deck you've never seen before. That's a whole other thing. Going on to EDH Rec and looking for the least used commander, finding a commander that's just by all means rubbish, and try and make a fun deck out of it. If everyone in your playgroup plays tribal and you kind of want to get in on that, if you've got an elves, a vampires, a dragons deck, make a dinosaurs deck, make a Metathran deck, which isn't possible by the way.
There's only one Metathran.
There's only one Metathran, but make a Metathran deck if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, great.
More power to you.
Yeah. I've seen a Griffin deck, I've seen a Rebels deck, and
That's cool.
You're never sad when you're playing against a deck like that. I love to see weird tribal decks that I've never seen. And like we were saying, you might get hemmed in to a certain number of cards. But in this instance, I don't know if that's a bad thing, because you've gone out of your way to make something different and unique. And so there is a positive to there being only a few cards. It means that you haven't got to scrabble around trying to find the best ones. If you want to build a Griffin deck, you just lump together all the Griffins. It's not going to be that hard to build a deck.
Exactly. And if you're playing the Griffin deck, and this is something I've said before as well, people aren't going to kill you first because they want to see what the Griffin deck does. So there's a massive political element to playing a deck that is either obviously underpowered or obviously going against the curve. People aren't going to want to kill you. If you're playing Xur, the first time, they might just kill you because you're playing Xur. But then once you kind of prove to them, this isn't a Xur deck, this is a stupid deck, watch what I can do, they might be like, oh yeah, let's see that. That's fun.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see what this deck does, and I might lose to it, but it's going to be funny.
But it's much easier if you step up to the game from the get-go with a commander that they haven't seen, with a tribe that they're not expecting, something different, something which definitely seems janky and underpowered.
Yeah, exactly. I promise the last time I'll talk about it today. The Zada deck at GP London, I got it out, and someone, oh yeah, you're playing allies. And I said, no, I'm not playing allies. They were, what? And I wasn't the target of attack or spells for a good few turns, because they wanted to see, how are you playing General Tazri as your commander, but you're not playing allies? What does that mean? So yeah, it's great fun.
Yeah, that was an amazing game, because you were given the opportunity to win, and you did win, but nobody complained about it. Everyone had so much fun. Whereas I guarantee that if you were playing Xur Doomsday, nobody would find it that fun in the same way. You still comboed off. It was still an infinite combo, but it was one that nobody had seen before. And so everybody at the table had so much more fun with you winning than they might have done otherwise. So where do we go from here? How do we conclude this? What are the big takeaways from what we've just been saying? We know that restrictions breed creativity. Mm-hmm. We've discussed a few ways that you can bring uniqueness to your decks.
Yeah.
But I think one of the biggest tips is possibly that you should be able to win without your commander.
Yeah, it is such an important sentence. Be able to win without your commander. I know I was looking at some notes for this episode, other people's deck building tips all the way back to like 2009. Some deck building tips for all formats. This is one for commander that came up a lot, is you need to be able to win without your commander out.
Without even having cast it at all that game.
Exactly. Have your commander as either an access to those colours, or preferably something that absolutely just furthers what your deck already does. And with your commander out, with access to this spell over and over again, you can really kind of do what your deck's trying to do, but it still needs to do it without your commander out.
Mm-hmm. Now, this isn't to say that building around a commander isn't a really good idea. It is, absolutely is. If you find a commander that you love and you really want to build around its effect, do. That's a fantastic way to build decks. and it will probably result in a lot of fun games.
Yes.
But what it means, if you have a deck which is able to win without your commander, it means that you are probably going to win in a different way every game. Every game is going to be different. You're going to play differently every game, and you are going to have a different experience playing it. You're going to have, I think, probably more fun, because you're not working to the same exact game plan every time. If your plan is turn 1 Mana Dork, turn 2 cast Selvala, turn 3 combo off and win, you're always going to be hedging towards that game plan. You're always going to be trying to reach that end. And so I don't think that you'll have as much fun. Personally, I don't find that as fun. I know that there are people out there that do, and more power to you. Please play that and continue to. This is just our idea of, a way that you might be able to freshen things up and make a deck which is a little bit more fun in the long run. And if you have a technique for building decks that work long term, they keep being fun, you keep going back to them, you look forward to playing them, please do let us know. If you've got restrictions that you like to adhere to, let us know. We want to hear them. We want to build decks to these ideas. Tim and I both love building decks, and so if somebody were to challenge us and say, you've got to build a deck like this, I will probably do it. Tim, I think we've got time, if you'd like, to play a game.
You know the answer. That is yes. I really want to play a game.
I'm really glad.
What's more exciting is I don't know what this game is. You haven't told me.
I've got a new game. It's a very simple game. In fact, it's probably not so much a game as it is a quiz.
Oh, okay.
So let's get going with what should we call this one? Magic Flavour Trivia.
Oh no, I'm going to be so bad at this.
Well, it's okay because this is a multiple choice quiz.
Perfect. I'm good at multiple choice quizzes.
I'm going to tell you the colour of the card and the card's flavour text, and then I'm going to give you a choice of 4 cards which it could be, and you've just got to guess which card it is. What do you think?
Oh, I think this is going to be really exciting. I'm so ready for this.
Okay, card number 1 is black.
Oh.
The flavour text is greatness at any cost.
Oh, I know that.
The card choices are Ad Nauseam, Necropotence, Dark Confidant, and Phyrexian Arena.
Oh, damn it. Okay, it's not Ad Nauseam because that's something about death. Or is it because it's greatness at any cost? Oh gosh. So it was Dark Confidant, Ad Nauseam, Phyrexian Arena, and what was the other one?
Necropotence.
Oh.
Greatness at any cost.
I think it's... I'm going to go with Ad Nauseam. Damn it, it's not right, is it? Oh.
It is not Ad Nauseam.
No! What is it?
It is Dark Confidant.
That was my least favourite choice. I was never going to get that. If you gave me 4 choices, I would have got that one last, Harry.
Okay, interesting. Well, you've got another chance. This card is green. Its diet consists of fruits, plants, small woodland animals, large woodland animals, woodland, fruit groves, fruit farmers, and small cities. Is this Spiked Baloth, Leatherback Baloth, Enormous Baloth, or Ravenous Baloth?
I'm going to have to go with Ravenous Baloth.
You are wrong.
No!
It's Enormous Baloth. Alright, one chance to redeem yourself.
Okay.
This is a gold card.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Sorry I burned down your village. Here's some gold. Is this Wall of Denial, Meddling Mage, Reparations, or Deft Duelist?
I feel like you put Reparations in there to fool me. And it might be Deft Duelist. But I'm going to go with my instinct and say it's Reparations. But it's Deft Duelist, isn't it? I can tell you it's... Oh, no.
Ding, ding, ding! It's Reparations.
Yes!
Well done.
I said that first, so that's the one I should get the point.
Well, Tim, you got 1 out of 3. I think that's a pretty good score.
And with that note, if you want to find us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at TPSMTG.
Yeah, you could send us an email to turnpapersideways@gmail.com. Do send us your restrictions and deck building ideas. You can also find us on YouTube.
Ooh.
We don't have a direct link yet because we need 1,000 subscribers, and currently we have 1. And
It's me.
It's Tim. So we'd be really grateful. Just search for Turn Paper Sideways on YouTube. Like and subscribe. The more subscribers we get, the more visible we get on YouTube. And the more good we feel about ourselves as well. But if we get 1,000, we get to make a custom URL. And I will put all of these details and a link to YouTube in the show notes. Tim, is there anything else you want to say to our listeners before we get going?
Yeah, I had a thought. If you have any ideas for games, let us know, and we'll play them if they're funny.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And because I was thinking about Annoying Ads and what an incredible game that is, but I can't think of anything quite as it doesn't make me giggle as much as Annoying Ads. Nothing me.
Sure, fair enough.
So if you can think of something, email us or tweet us or comment on our YouTube videos.
Yeah, basically we're asking you to make us laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can make each other laugh.
Exactly.
So we can make you laugh.
Exactly. It's just one big happy laughing circle. Cool. Thank you very much for listening.
Cheerio.
Fire, Sun and Song Speaker?
Oh, that's I don't know.
Fire, Sun and...
No.
So Fire, Sun and Song... Fire... If Nexus of Fate would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, reveal Nexus of... If Nexus of Fate would be put into a graveyard from anywhere...